So you're new to Genshin, you've been doing some 10 pulls in the current banner, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Beidou. Now, what do you get with Beidou besides Ningguang's chess partner? Well, Beidou is a Claymore-wielding Electro user whose burst is actually really good when you have multiple enemies that you're going up against. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Beidou, how her skill works, how her burst works, a little bit of artifacts, and a little bit of weapon talk. So just like we do in every single one of these videos, we are going to look at the current build of the Beidou that we are using for this video. Now, we are just going to touch on these things in the next video, in her artifact grinding hell video. We are going to go much deeper into this stuff, so do be sure to check out that one. That'll be coming out tomorrow. So my Beidou is level 80 out of 80 with 18,000 HP, 1,000 attack, 93 EM. Her crit split is 72.9 over 181.4 with 201 energy recharge. She is running a Serpent Spine, level 80 for her weapon, and she is running a 4-piece emblem. This is my Raiden's artifact set for this video. She is C6, and we will talk about those, but we are first going to look at her talents. So Retribution, counterattacking with Tidecaller at the precise moment when the character is hit, grants the maximum damage bonus. We'll talk about how that works with her skill in just a minute. And then Lightning Storm, gain the following effects for 10 seconds after unleashing Tidecaller, her skill, with its maximum damage bonus. Damage dealt by normal and charge attacks is increased by 15%, attack speed of normal and charge attack is increased by 15%, and greatly reduces delay before unleashing charged attacks, making it a little bit easier to run on field of Beidou. Now, since my Beidou is C6, I do want to run through them real quick so you can see the differences in her playstyle upon getting each con. So her first con is going to give her a shield upon using her burst based on her max HP. Now, you don't want to build HP on Beidou. The shield is much more of just like a handy dandy helpful thing, not something to invest heavily into. I would not consider Beidou a shielder, even with this first con. C2 allows her burst to jump to more enemies. We'll talk about that whenever we talk about her burst. C3 is going to increase the level of her skill. So C4 is going to be that when Beidou is attacked, it is going to allow her an extra instance of electro damage on her normal attacks, which we'll point that out whenever we get in there. C5 is going to increase her burst by 3 levels. During her burst, enemies will have their electro resistance dropped by 15%, meaning that she will just do more damage with her skill in her burst. So now with all of that out of the way, let's go look at how to use her skill in her burst. Now, real quick, I was going to actually leave Serpent Spine on Beidou and talk about these swords surrounding her, but I decided I'm actually going to take it off and just put Wolf's Gravestone on her so I don't have to worry about the side effects of Serpent Spine. So now her crit split is 47.8, but now her attack is 1800. So now we're going to look at her normal attacks. So her normal attacks are pretty normal. She's going to be swinging her Claymore, but something that you're going to notice that I'm going to actually replay a couple of times behind me, she's just doing physical damage until she gets hit. When she gets hit, you're going to start seeing these small, like less than 1,000 instances of electro damage pop up. That is from her constellation. Upon taking damage, she is going to get not electro infusion, but it's just going to deal a little bit of electro damage with her normal attacks. Now, it is insignificant, except for if you're going to be using her on like an aggravate and spread team, then this will help keep the aggravate aura on the enemies. Kind of like how Fischl does with Oz and with C6 Fischl's tiny little Oz orb. This is kind of going to help keep that aura there, so that way all of your Electro and Dendro attacks are just going to be getting increase in damage with the reaction. Her charge attack is going to be the swing back and forth variant, not the Beyblade variant of the Claymore charged attacks. Now we're going to look at her skill. And her skill is going to have a tap and a hold, and that passive that comes into it. So first we're going to look at the tap. The tap is just going to do an instance of electro damage within its range. I don't necessarily consider it an AoE. I guess it kind of is an AoE. It does have a pretty big range, but whenever you tap it, she's just going to swing her Claymore around, dealing electro damage to enemies. The hold version of this skill means that she can actually be hit a couple of times. She's almost going to produce a shield. It's not going to like show a shield, but she's going to hold her Claymore up and it's going to allow enemies to hit her. When they hit her up to 2 times, it is going to increase the damage from her skill. You're going to notice that she is going to be glowing this very bright purple. That is how you know when you have both charges. Whenever you release your skill or whenever its duration ends, she's going to swing the Claymore, dealing a lot more electro damage. Now her passive, if you time it correctly, whenever you hit her skill just as she herself is being hit, it is not going to count for 1 hit, it is going to count for 2 and immediately jump up to maximum damage. That is the counterattack mechanism in Beidou's kit. If an enemy is about to hit you and you hit her skill at the correct time, she is going to shield the damage and immediately be dealing max damage upon swinging her claymore. So that is how that passive works with her skill. You have to time it perfectly. You have to time it very, very good to get the counterattack mechanism. Now, in this state, in the hold state, the amount of damage that she can absorb before she actually starts to take damage, I guess, amount of damage she can shield before starting to take damage is based off of her max HP. Again, though, I wouldn't put too much of an investment in her HP, but having some isn't going to hurt her. Definitely wouldn't do it as like a main stat, but it's not going to hurt her, right? Now we're going to look at her burst, and because I have over C1, her burst is going to actually give a shield that will stay if you swap off the field to another character. When you activate her burst, she's going to do an instance of AoE electro damage, and whenever you do normal attacks, even with somebody that's not Beidou, it is going to do this electro jolt, electric strike at enemies, and you're going to see it bounce around. The more enemies that are around, the more it's going to bounce, right? And we have C2, so it's going to be able to bounce around more than it normally would. So this is going to be really, really good when you have a ton of enemies around. But with how it works, it's not going to be doing like a ton of damage to one enemy. It's going to be able to pass around and jump between enemies, doing damage to a lot of enemies. And if they are affected with other elements, each jump will cause a reaction, right? So each jump with using her, like with Nikita, each jump is going to have an aggravate reaction on these enemies, increasing their damage. So the more enemies that you have around, the more that these things can jump around, the better. So Beidou's really, really good with groups of enemies because of how her burst works. Now, again, I do get a shield whenever I use her burst because I have over C0, but I would not invest in the max HP. I would not invest in Beidou's HP because, again, I don't consider like Beidou and Yanfei shielding characters, even though they get shields with constellations. It's much better to invest in their other stats, and the shield is just kind of like an add-on. It just helps a little bit, right? It's not something to depend on, but it does just help a little bit. So now let's look at some artifacts and weapons. For a basic beginner artifact, early game artifact, doing 4-piece exile is going to be very, very good. Beidou's best thing is going to be through her burst. Because it's off field, you can go to another character. It's going to be causing a lot of reactions. So this is going to be very, very good for keeping her burst ready to be used as frequently as possible. For the main stats, you want to do either attack percent or energy recharge on your sands, depending on what you need more of, right? Because you need a lot of energy recharge on Beidou. Electro damage goblet, and crit rate, crit damage circlet, depending on what you're in more need of. For weapons, you actually do have some decent early game or craftable options. So for 4-star weapons, you do have the craftable Inazuma Claymore, which can be very, very good. It's going to get up energy recharge, and it's going to increase her elemental skill damage. So you're going to be getting usefulness out of her burst and increased damage out of her skill. So this can be a very, very good craftable option. You do, of course, have like Serpent Spine that I was going to be using at the beginning of this, which is going to get up her crit rate, which can be good, but that is a Battle Pass weapon. You do have to pay to get that one. For 3 stars, you do have like Debate Club or Bloodtainted Greatsword, which is going to get up EM, which can be very, very good in an aggravate or spread team. You also have 4-star Rain Slasher, which can be good. It's going to get up EM as well, and it's going to increase damage against enemies affected by Hydro and Electro, so this can be good for Beidou. However, if you have something like Sacrificial Greatsword or Favonius Greatsword, those can also be very, very good because of that energy recharge. So we're going to talk more about teams and how Beidou works in different teams in the Artifact Riding Hell video. However, I do want to say this. If you are using Beidou, you need to run her with a battery. Beidou is so energy hungry, and you almost have to run her with a character like Fischl, so that way Oz can produce enough electro particles to allow her to use her burst. That's why I said exile. That's why in this video we're running her an emblem. She needs energy recharge. You almost always have to run her with Fischl, or even like a Dory could work. Dory is a great battery and a healer, so she can do good in that team. Like right now behind me, I'm running Beidou, Fischl, Nahida, and Yao Yao. This is an aggravate and spread team. This can be very, very good because Fischl is battering Beidou, as well as allow me to run on-field Nahida to get those aggravates with her burst. This team can be, a team like this can be good, but you almost have to run Beidou with a battery like Fischl or Raiden or some other characters that will help Beidou get the energy that she needs to use her burst off of cooldown. So that is going to be it for this video. Do be sure to check out the Artifact Grinding Hell video tomorrow, where we're going to talk more about teams and more about late game Beidou building. I will see you in that video.